Oh. Alrighty, I'm a little late. Thing to take the right picture for the cover, I guess. And I need to get better at doing that so that it's just not my face every time I'm doing that. But I was working on the audio game, so I think I've come up with a basic set of 3 puzzles. I guess we'll call them puzzles. As it turns out, one of them is something that I use as like a combination lock that you have to crack. So it is a puzzle, and I think what I'm doing for that one is like the image I showed. I'm not sure I want to point it at the camera now because it'll freak out, but we'll give it a try. This is the one I want to play with a little bit. And so what you have is essentially 3 triangles. Each point of the triangle is a different number. And the bottom 2 triangles have a number at each point. And so in this case, and I'll have to describe these because I want it to be a non-visual. I'll potentially just make an image for visual aid for those who need it. But you're going to have your 3 triangles. The arranged themselves in a triangular formation, all pointing towards the center. And the bottom right triangle has its point says 4. Well, I guess they're all points, aren't they? The 2 outside points are 6 and 8. The inside point is 4. And then the bottom right is 2 outside points are 1 and 8, and the inside point is 9. And then the third one, the 2 outside points are 6 and 3, and the inside point is blank. And you have the option of picking 2 numbers to go into that spot. One of them is going to be the number 9, and one of them is going to be the number 4. Which one do you pick? And if you choose the option number 9, go to the left channel. And if you choose the option number 4, go to the right channel. And based off of that, you'll either succeed at getting into the safe or cracking the code to the access panel, or whatever mechanism you're doing to try to get the object of that turn. And then the other 2 puzzles are a little less puzzle-like that I'm thinking of going for. One of them's a little more of the story element is going to lay out a certain, like 5 clues in the story element. And roughly 3 or 4 of those clues max would be what you would need to figure out what it's pointing you towards. So it would be sort of like you see garden shears, a spade, a gardener's hat and gardener's gloves, and a terracotta pot. And so the next location you have to get to is through the garden. Like, if you can't figure that out with those 5 clues in the narrative, then yeah, you get it wrong, and then you don't get to solve that portion of that puzzle. And so this number puzzle, that kind of puzzle, and then a trivia piece, again, largely based off of the story that we've already been through, where the element of the story will, have told you something, and you get to do a true or false question based off of those events. If you were paying attention, you should be able to get that one. So that's almost a gimme. That's almost like a, well, yeah, I'm basically saying, like, if you've played the game this far and remember it and we're paying enough attention, you'll know whether this is true or false or not. And if you do know it, do this channel. If you don't know it, do this channel. And then from there, tell the story of what's happening as the consequence of those actions. And then it's sort of like you get to a final destination and you find out if you have enough of the clues to stop the evil villain's plan. If you do, 2 out of 3 clues should be able to get you to stop the plan. If you don't, better luck next time. And so that's sort of the format I'm going for with this one. So it's a trivia. It's a I don't know what to call that middle one. The one where it's clues and deduction, I guess is where I'd go with that. And then the number puzzle for the combination. And those 3 puzzles I think will work. The story structure I think I'm going for is I may revisit the Captain Rita Raygun's thrilling interplanetary adventures setting. You might be a cadet sent to gather information about a villain who may be trying to escape imprisonment, and the different pieces that you collect will indicate like if they've escaped, where they're going to, and what kind of clues they left behind would be the trivia question at the end. And if you have that information and you can report it back to Star Command, or however I want to refer to it, that would be the game. Is you're on your first mission, or your test mission, the one that'll actually get you confirmed as a Rocket Ranger, or however we want to phrase that. And failure or success is of the utmost importance to your character at that point. So I think I can probably run that story out well enough to keep it under 20 minutes, but still keep a decent story with the 3 puzzles you have to figure and the results of the puzzles as you proceed. So if we do roughly, say, a 15-minute split into 5 sections, right? So it's intro. Well, it might actually be longer than that because I'm going to have to give instructions on how to play. So I might have to give about 2 or 3 minutes of instructions on how to play the game. Then the intro to the story, up to and including the first decision puzzle. And then the split for the decision for another couple minutes. And then back to the next phase of the story with the split to the decision on those. So we're at 4 parts of story at that point. And then a 5th part of the story, 6th split, or 3rd split, 6th part. Then a 7th end of story with the split for victory or failure. So it's about 8 sections, roughly 8 or 9 sections, depending on how well I do it. And if we rough it out to about 10 sections, if each section is 2 minutes at most, you're gonna err on the side of about 20 minutes. So it'll be interesting to see what I can get done with that. So that's sort of where I am. I am sort of also keeping in mind the discussion we had last night about the possibility of doing the horror Halloween game, audio game version. And I'm already starting to realize like some of the things that occurred to my thinking after after I closed out last night was like, there's room in here for doing something like a maze or a labyrinth. Like, you come to a split in the tunnel. One goes left, one goes right. Which one do you take? And have one of them hit a dead end or a booby trap or something and kill you or trap you in. And the other one takes you to the next portion where it splits again and you make a choice. And as you go, you start eliminating the wrong turns as you have to go all the way back to the beginning and start again. And then somewhere along the path of this maze, like these are done with make the left choice or the right choice for the speaker. And if you're on the left channel, anything that I do for middle channel will still play on the left channel. And so I can do, like, you make the choice of going left and you're in the left channel and it's the right path to take. As you're on that path, I can say, like, you make it through the gateway and there doesn't seem to be any signs of danger for where you are right now. And then you're going down the path and I can lead back to a central channel of saying 2 choices for the path you're on right there. Do you go right or do you go left? And if you, one of them will be right and one of them will be wrong. If you continue to go on the left path this time too, you're going to encounter maybe that's the dead end this time. And so you should have gone to the right one. And if you went to the right one, that one will continue forward and it'll read the center path, which you'll also hear. And you'll make the choice of, do you go left or do you go right? And pick your headphone based off of that one. And so you can continue doing that way as long as you keep eliminating one of the paths all the time. One of the headphones will always continue to be the journey for you. And when you come to a choice, you've emptied out that other channel to be able to use it as the other choice again. So it totally works to be able to do the maze. And so doing the maze that way, I'm thinking that if I do the maze, do a short maze, followed by a confrontation with a minotaur or a sphinx, where they, the sphinx asks you a riddle and gives you 2 choices, and you have to figure out the answer to the riddle, left or right. And then if you're right, it lets you pass. And do something similar for a minotaur. And so I could build essentially like a sphinx, a minotaur, and a manticore or something like that, a cockatrice or something like that. That's at the end of small mazes. So if you have 3 monsters and a maze before the first monster, maze between the first and the second, a maze between the second and third, and then a maze after the third monster, you're getting 4 mazes and 3 monsters, if I'm doing my math right. And at the end of the last maze is the exit, so you can get out. So you have basically a 7-segment long story element, and I think it works really, really well. So I'll think about something. I have to think a little bit more about it. I don't think I'll do like a sphinx and a minotaur or something like that. That's a little too Greek. I think what I'll probably go for is a corn maze and like ghosts and psycho killers and whatnot inside the maze, and different ways of getting around them. And that's sort of the audio puzzle games that I've sort of played with so far. The other thing I've been playing with is the music that I was playing with last night. And as I was playing with it, I already think I found a better direction to sort the bars of music in. So yesterday I just had the individual notes for all 4 bars, and I put them in the same order as the piece of music that I have. And as I was playing with it today, I turned half of those bars into chords, and I left the other half as single notes. And I adjusted some of them. I think I had them wrong yesterday for the song piece. So I adjusted half of them, and I left the other half as I had them. And so I want to sort of play with it here and see if I can get the audio to play. But let's give it a try and see if I can get it to make sense. See if I can pull this up without freaking my computer out. So, ready, and... So hopefully that worked. I don't know if it worked or not. That should have played. And I kind of liked how that turned out, switching some of that over to chords and bumping some of the notes in a new direction. I think it worked out reasonably well for what I was doing. Let's see if I... Yeah, I think that worked out actually really well by accident. And yeah, I will call that by accident, because I was looking at what I was doing, and I want to see if I can flip the camera around and point it at the screen. I know that's always a little bit of a mistake to try to do, but let's give it a try and see if we can get this to see what we did. So let me get the camera off of here. And so that's what we got here. That's the piano roll. And you can kind of see right here where I pulled it into chords. These 2 bars were pulled into chords. These are still single note sections. So I played this section first, the last 2 bars, and then the first 2 bars next. And I think that really kind of worked. But you'll also notice what I have here is, I think that's an F5 is what it's saying. And that's on F5, but these 2 and these guys are the same note that yesterday they would have played as the same note. These are actually, I think I've got F flat on those, but somehow, don't ask me how, it worked. Because I really do think that actually works pretty well the way it played. And so I'm still just dabbling with it, because quite frankly, I'm not a musician, and it's going to be a little bit weird and sloppy at first, but that's just the way it works. That's a great shot of my face, I'm sure. All right, so yeah, I mean, I'm starting to get the feel like I've always been a little nervous to play around music, because I'm not qualified. I have no real sense of how music works like that. I expect somebody else, when doing any music, somebody else is going to feed me the music, and I'm going to reproduce it based off of hearing what they've given me. That's what I do okay at. I'm not used to playing around with the notes, but as I was playing around with those today, I'm like, I got things wrong, and it still sounds okay-ish. Like, I feel like maybe I've been making this way more complicated than it needs to be. So, yeah, I'm kind of at a loss for how well that has turned out. So I'm going to see if I can learn a little bit about moving those bars around, because I do want to put I want to put the single note sections first, then the chords, and then I don't know if I want to, I think what I'm going to do is single notes, chords, probably a repeat of chords with a lower octave single note, and then drop the beat in. I mean, a lot of the music I'm used to really enjoying, or what I think works really well for some simple work, is it starts out with a musical tone and then drops you into a full song in a few seconds. So like an example would be like you'd get a choral singer, somebody singing nice high crisp notes in a solo for just a little bit, and then the rest of the music pulls in, and then the beat hits and gives you a rhythm, and it really turns the music up a bit. Now the risk with that, I think at this point, is like I'm at 4 bars already, and it's not a super long piece, but for like intro music on a YouTube channel, you don't want more than like 5 to 8 seconds is sort of where you want your max to end up being, because if you have like a 10 to 20 second intro music, that's when people start to feel like it's too long. And so I'm keeping that in mind, is like when you're building little musical ditties like this, you don't want a 10-second or like a 6 to 8 bars necessarily. You're going to hit the threshold relatively quick of where the cutoff point is. So you want to communicate what you want the music to do. So there's no time for a slow ramp up on the melody, the overall music, and then the beat. You can't give 4 bars to each because you're already well past 12 seconds at that point. And so I was like, okay, so this works for maybe like a lead in. I need to get a sense of where I can go with a full set of chords and the lower additional notes and the beat, so that I can run it as a looping track, so I can make it fit that kind of like any size video I'm working on or any game that I'm working on. Because that's, if you've ever played a video game, the song that plays in the background while you're playing, that's just a loop. That's an audio loop. It rarely has a start and an end. Like if you think of like Final Fantasy, the music for Final Fantasy is just an endlessly looping little jingle. And when you get onto a boat in Final Fantasy, I believe they switch the music over to a different jingle. And while you're wandering the landscape, when you stop on a city or a town or a castle or whatever, or have a monster encounter, they have a little bit of a noise that is created that splits from the song to a new song. So if you go into a combat mode, they drop you out of the main overland song, and they drop you into the combat song. And once that's over, they do have an ending to the combat song that plays, and then they drop you back onto the map. And I'm not sure if they have a restart at the like a beginning 3-note bit that drops you back into the overland map. But cities usually have a city song. I don't know if it's always the same song. It's been a while since I played a few of those games, but that's sort of the technique that I need to try to figure out. Not just for using my own music in games that I make, but also for doing stuff for like YouTube videos. Is I might do an intro music then the opening credit music, so like when my logo comes out, have 2 seconds to 5 seconds of jingle for the channel, and then drop into background music for the main video, and then have a end song at the end of the video that, you know, I can loop this stuff in the middle. You got the opener to start things, then the channel jingle that should mesh relatively well, background music, and then out into the out music, outro, I guess. And like, that's the same format you kind of want to be able to use for a video game, YouTube videos. I think there's probably a few other formats that I could probably apply it to. I do feel like if I'm going to do my audio game here, I'm not going to be using any of my own music in it yet. I'll probably just see what the free music on YouTube offers that I could use as just an ambiance for the music, and pull off some of that music and probably edit it into a few small loops that I can run. I'm kind of curious, actually. Am I allowed to edit those? Not sure. Probably. I imagine they don't have too much trouble with it. At any rate, that's sort of where I'm playing with right now. I think, yeah, the audio game is pretty straightforward at this point. I just need to script out the actual story of it, because I even got sort of like where I want the solutions of the puzzles to be. Then it's just scripting and recording the audio bits. And I think, based off of my experiments from last night, using Audacity should be pretty straightforward in splitting the channels and getting kind of what I need. And I'm kind of excited to see if I can I want to see if I can maybe focus on that tomorrow, and maybe set the music aside for seeing what I can finish up by Saturday night. Because I kind of want to throw up a demo of the audio game to share with some people on like social media, and kind of get feedback and get a sense of like, do you think this would be a fun thing to play with a little bit of? And I was talking with some people on a Facebook group for YouTube content creators, and pitching and sort of asking a little bit for thoughts, and also sort of pitching my idea for the coming month of October. There's a part of me that's very contrary sometimes. And so I said, like, yeah, I was having this idea that it would be kind of fun to do a short story every day and a TV episode every day, and such on and so forth for each of my 8 categories of content each day. And because my new format for doing those is a review video and then a prompt video, that would be 2 videos for each of those things. And so 8 categories times 2, that's 16 videos a day, not counting my live video at the end of the day. And so, like, oh, you're rapidly approaching like 18 to 20 videos in a day. And it's like, yeah, I don't know that I want to do that. That kind of feels a little spammy. So I posted essentially that whole blurb there on that group, and somebody goes, yeah, that sounds like way too much. I wouldn't recommend doing that. He's like, I don't even recommend people post a video every day. And I'm like, but I post every day. And then he's like, yeah, I would stick to, maybe doing once a week. And I'm like, now I feel like I have to do 17 in a day. Just because, like, no, you can't tell me what to do. I know it's a stupid way to behave. But, like, maybe not for the whole of the month. Maybe sometime in November, I'll do a solid week. Just 1 week of 16 videos a day. that would be totally sick. That would be really sick. I think that's like, just to see if I could do it. I imagine it's going to be an absolute just butt ton of work. Because when I really think about it, like the videos that I do for like when I read a book or a story usually end up being about 5 to 10 minutes long. And the same for the creative prompts inspired by them. So you're already talking about 20 to 30 minutes of video there, on top of potentially spending half an hour to an hour and a half on short story reading, or in the case of watching a TV episode, it's usually like a 45 minutes to an hour. Russian Doll has been half an hour episodes, which is rare. But so I have to watch half an hour to an hour of TV programming, read about a half an hour to an hour of a book, and then shoot about an hour of video for both of them. And then you do the same. That's for 2 of my 8 categories. And if you rough it out to the other 8 categories, that's an easily a 12 to 16 hour day right there. So if I did that for a whole month, that would be insane. That would just be a whole day of producing videos. A week, I could maybe get away with. I don't think, like, I'm hoping to get, on top of what I already do, a part-time job coming up soon. I don't think I'm going to have the time to do a whole month. I might not even have time to do a whole week. I might do a few days here and here. Like, I might do 1 day each week of November where I do one for each of my categories of content for that day. I don't know. I'll think about it. It still seems kind of crazy, but that's part of the reason it appeals to me. Like, I wouldn't be doing audio games based off of left-right audio channel splitting if it didn't strike me as like really complicated, tricky, and just kind of almost a little bit absurd. Like, I sort of love the challenge of figuring it out and creating something like that. And I kind of love the idea that if I get this figured out, that I can show and help other people do it too, so we can all create audio games that we can play like this. And even more, in the back of my mind has been the question of whether or not I might be able to not just make the external device with which you could play these games, but I'm kind of curious if I could figure out a way to create a program and maybe a piece of hardware that could let somebody who's visually impaired create their own audio games. Because right now it's like using Audacity and a video editing software. I feel like that would be a very clumsy way for somebody who's visually impaired, because they're very visually oriented mechanisms for doing those things. And I'm kind of curious if there's a possible way to make the software and hardware attachments possible so that somebody could sit down with a smartphone or a laptop and say, turn on the recorder and like memorize a script and read the script. And then when it comes a point to switch to one channel or the other, you hit the left channel button and you read the next part of the script for that, and it records it. And then you hit the right channel button and you record that channel, and the software puts that together into the stereo left channel, right channel. Like, being able to build something that's that, simple, like plug and play audio game design, I think that would be like, I want to make that possible for people to do. That's something I think further down the line. Like right now, I've already got enough just to see if I can get this game working by tomorrow night, hopefully, if not Saturday night. And then in a future project, see if I can devise a product for hooking up to your speakers on your to your headphone jack on your MP3 players, your smartphones, your laptops, and your computers, or your tablets, or however you want to do that, where you can access any game video that I make, or hopefully that I encourage other people to make. And now you have a whole slew of new games that you could play with this piece of hardware. That piece of hardware is a later project. After that, I will then look into the possibility of seeing if I can make products and software and potentially services that can help people use a new way of creating those types of things. I didn't think this silly idea that I started with would end up being such a big set of projects, but I'm kind of loving that it is. So I'm looking forward to playing around with some of this a little bit more in the future. Right now, I'm going to finish off my Ray Gun Gothic puzzle story for the week and do a little bit of brainstorming about where I'm going to go for the Halloween spooky audio puzzle game. And we'll just see where we go from there. I've got to actually hop on here again after I'm done with this video, because I forgot to upload videos regarding the movie I watched for this week. So I got to do the review and the creative prompts video tonight. Tomorrow, I believe, is the review of a tabletop game, and then Saturday is the creative prompts inspired by that game. So we've got a lot to do in the next 48 hours. So I will catch you later. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care and have a good night. Thought I was typing with an accent there for a second.